but right now it's time for our next panel discussion. And it's called Evil Deeds, the Craft of Crime Writing. And so we're very excited about this because we've got some wonderful authors who are going to be part of that. I'm going to introduce you first to our panel moderator, and then the other participants will be introducing themselves after she gets the session started. Dr. Kathleen Lopez is our moderator today, and she started writing at the age of 14 as a junior high journalist. I'm so jealous. She continued her passion by writing short stories and poetry throughout college. Writing was never just a hobby for her, but a way of life. As an indie author, she publishes suspenseful stories of murder, mystery, and mayhem with a touch of romance for good measure. That sounds pretty wonderful. Her Schuler series follows the character of Sheriff Martin Schuler. This character has a thread currently spanning 4 books, but his story is far from over. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Lopez.
Well, thank you. I have love to talk about, crime writing, and I think probably too much. It's probably unhealthy, but it's always fun to gather with other people in your genre to talk about this type of stuff. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess that's hand off to me.
It is.
Yeah. So I see 2 of our panelists. So why don't we go ahead and kick it off with a little bit of intro. I'll hand it off to Armond. Basically, introduce yourself, and if you're more fictional, true crime, what's your passion? Armond.
Hi, I'm Armond Rosamilia. I am a fiction writer, although I've done nonfiction books, not true crime. That'd be kind of fun. My latest series is a crime thriller series called First Coast Thrillers, and the second book just came out. It'll be a 6-book series, and it is set in Jacksonville Beach, but they also travel to Amelia Island. They'll travel basically up and down the coast of Florida. The series that I'm still also running concurrently is called Dirty Deeds, and that is a crime thriller series. And the main character in I just put out book 10. It'll be a 12-book series, and it's between Atlanta and St. Augustine. So a lot of local ties. I'm living in Jacksonville. I've been here for 10 years now, and so it's a lot of there's a lot of humor. There's a lot of I'm a Jersey guy originally, so there's the Jersey mob is involved in all these books as well. So it's just fun. I was a horror author, and mostly just a horror author for the last 25 years, 30 years, and I started to realize that more of the stuff I was writing was crime thriller with some horror elements, as opposed to horror with crime thriller elements. And so far, it's paid off. So far, my books are doing very well. Once I got away from I'm a horror author and went up to I'm a crime thriller author, and I also write some horror stuff.
Awesome. So Alicia, hand off to you for your intro.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Alicia Voltmer. I am a practicing attorney, and I currently live in Dallas, although I am a native Floridian. I practice in labor and employment law, but my genre is the supernatural legal thriller. I'm not aware that there are many folks who write in this genre. I grew up in John Grisham's era. I know he also lives on the islands. I have run by his place many times on the beach. I am not as prolific yet as Armond, so he is quite inspirational for me today. But I am working on the sequel to my novel, The Rise of Lady Justice, which is about a lawyer who wakes up dead in the afterlife and has to figure out who killed her and why to save the world.
That's great. My intro, again, I'm trailing Armond in the published world. I've got about 7 books, 4 of which are my Schuler series. It's a fictional crime series. I'm working on book 5. That's, Schuler just will not stop talking to me, so I need to keep writing about him. I'm originally from New York. I am now in Central Florida. So, but however, my settings, and I'm not too too comfortable talking about true settings. So, you know, because I'm afraid, you know, I'm going to say something wrong. Something's like, oh, that building's not there anymore, and I'll just get reamed for it. But yeah, so I live in the world of fantasy, so I like more fictional. I haven't tried a true crime or nonfiction book, but one of my first questions I want to ask the panel is, whatever you like, whatever you're drawn to mostly, like you're, you know, mostly like fiction and things like that. Armand kind of already touched on it, that would you consider doing a true crime or a nonfiction that's something outside your genre? I mean, would that be interested to change genres? Like I said, Armand's already kind of discussed how he switched. So we'll continue on with Armand. Would you consider going, like I said, a true crime? Is that what challenges you think that would possess for you?
You know, I think that would be great. I've done nonfiction books before. I've done a pro wrestling book. I've done a baseball book. I even did a nonfiction where I went to different Dunkin' Donuts for 30 days and interviewed people and talked to people in and out. And that was a lot of fun. But those books, for me, were more on the fly, like, you know, things that I knew already. So I did a lot of research on it. And you know, I would love to do a true crime book, but it would have to be something that I'm passionate about, a case, something that I'm really interested in. And I think that's, you know, I think that would be great. I can only imagine the amount of research, reading articles and different things of people who have done those types of books. I think it would be fascinating to, and a little scary to get that deep into a case like that. You know, I have a tendency when I'm working on a nonfiction book to fully immerse myself in whatever it is. And so far I've done entertainment things. I've done fun things, you know. It wasn't hard to go to a Dunkin' Donut, a different Dunkin' every day and drink coffee and eat food, let's be honest. It was hard for me because I'm actually introverted. It was hard for me to talk to people, to just grab a random person that's sitting in a Dunkin' and say, tell me your story, kind of thing. So I think it would be interesting to do a true crime thing, but it would have to be a case. It would have to be something that, you know, spoke to me. I don't think I could just, if somebody said, hey, write a book about this case, and I'd be like, okay. I think it would have to be some kind of either tie in of where I grew up or where I am or somebody that I knew, you know, those types of things. But it would be fascinating, and I think it would take a lot of work. But I think in the end, I think it would probably be a great story to write.
Okay. Alicia, your ideas?
I would love to write a true crime story, but my fear is this. You know, in law school, you take criminal procedure and you take criminal law. So you get the basics down fairly early in the legal career. In fact, those are first year law student classes. My fear is that if I were to dig into any type of story like that, I probably would spend a lifetime researching it, probably take on the case myself, you know, try to solve the case, because that's what lawyers do. I mean, we get involved, you know, we interview witnesses, we make judgment calls. You know, for me, it might be a little too personal to dig in, and I don't practice criminal law, but I do find it quite fascinating. You know, the entire interview process, chasing down leads, looking at evidence, seeing what evidence is left. I mean, just all of that would be fascinating. But I agree with Armand. It would have to be something. It would have to be the type of case that would, you know, truly interest me and pique my fascination.
Yeah, see, I'm of the mind, I mean, yeah, I would, yeah, definitely have to be something that spoke to me, but I'm hesitant to actually write the book. Like I said, I would probably do the research just for my edification because I lean in that, you know, lean in that direction. But writing about something, it's almost too tangible to me. I mean, I like my fiction, you know, I like to be in the, like I said, the land of make-believe. I don't want to know that this could be my neighbor, you know, because this is a real life person. This is, you know, this really happened. And you know, sometimes human nature is a lot scarier than any fiction you can come up with. So knowing when you dive into certain things, certain cases, it could get, you know, very enlightening in a really bad way. So I'd like to not, you know, it's like I said, it's a little too daunting of a task for me personally. But so I kind of just, like I said, stay in the land of make believe and just write my stories from there. But speaking of writing things that are you know, a little too intense. What would you say would be the most disturbing thing you've ever had to write, whether it was true or fantasy? What would be a scene that you started going down this path and you're like, wow, that came out of my head, you know? So I'll start with Alicia this time.
Yeah, so a disturbing scene that I wrote, there is a scene in my book about, well, there's actually a part of the storyline involves one of the characters who grows up in a not so wonderful environment and unfortunately is a victim of abuse at the hands of a priest. And that was very difficult for me to write. I am certainly spiritual and religious. In a way, it was horrifying for me. And it was tough. It took a lot of revisions and it took a lot of input from other people to make sure that it was not too, I can't even think of the word that I want to use. It wasn't too outrageous, but it was enough to convey the thought. But it was difficult for me to write. And I will say, maybe not so horrifying, but a close second to that was not quite a sex scene, but something similar to that I wrote knowing that my parents would read this book. And after my mother read it at the dinner table, she said to me, I just don't think there's enough sex in your book. Which was shocking to me because she's almost 80. That was a tough one to listen to as well.
Armond?
Yeah, to be honest, that's a tough one. I've written a ton of horror and what you would call splatterpunk, which is just basically over the top. Mostly short stories. There's a couple of anthologies that I'm in, and let's just say that probably the one I wrote for Evil Cookie Press, one of their anthologies, the man and the woman find one another, and they both have a fetish for power tools, and basically cutting each other with these power tools. And it was really a crazy, like, even writing it was like, I know I have to go over the top with this. I know this has to be like just completely ridiculously crazy. And after writing that, it was like I needed a break. I was like, I need a shower after this. It's like this is just really creepy and disgusting. And they loved it. They were like, oh my God, this is definitely, this is definitely going in this anthology. And I've written a couple of those types of stories over the years. It's not my favorite thing to write, but when I get an idea, I know I have to write it. I have to finish this. And if the call is for crazy over the top, then do it. Whereas with my crime thriller stuff, I make sure that there's no profanity, there's no crazy violence, there's no real sex. There's the illusion of it's coming, but I don't really go into detail because I've done that so much in 30 years writing horror stories. I'm like, you know what, I need a change. I need something that my kids are all in their 20s now. I need something that my kids can read. I need something that because a lot of my stuff. So I wrote my first breakout was Dying Days, which is a zombie series, and one of the taglines for it, somebody said, was these zombies don't want to bite you, they want to rape you. And I was like, well, that's kind of well, that's kind of what it is. Like they that's basically what they want to do, and it's never really in. There's none of those scenes. There's no zombies wanting to have sex with you, but it's like one of the fears of the characters. And I remember I was at a book signing, and a guy came up and he was like, "Oh, this is the rapey zombie guy," and he like yelled that really loud, and I was like, "Oh my God, how embarrassing!" Like I don't want to be known as the rapey zombie guy, like that's awful. Like that's gonna be my when I die, that's gonna be in the obituary, Armond Rosamilia, the rapey zombie guy. So I'm really with the crime thriller stuff, I've really changed and try to get away, and I'll still write those stories on occasion if I see if a publisher invites me to something like that. But mostly they've stopped inviting me to those, which is good, and I've done more of the crime thriller stuff.
For me, in my third book in the Schuller series, Sweet Child of Mine, there's a scene that involves a child, obviously the title, but it involves a child that something happens. I don't want to give too much away because there's it leads up to this, but as I was writing it and it was getting intense and intense, my psyche just shut off. It just was like, nope, I can't, it's one of those where you're watching a movie and you're like, don't hurt the kid or the dog. It's like, it's just all of a sudden it got to that point where I had it all plotted out. I had everything and I could not get my fingers to type what I needed them to type. I just couldn't get there. So it's like, I had to come up with a way of letting the reader fill in the blank, kind of do the fade to black and go, whatever you're thinking, yes, that's what happened. Just kind of let them fill it, because I didn't realize how, emotionally involved I was into that, until that moment, as I was, did all the research, and I could not finish that scene the way I had initially intended. So I had to, stop, take a breath and just, come up with a different way of getting that scene in there without really writing the scene. So it was a little, I surprised myself that it got that intense for me. So now, this day and age, a lot of people I don't want to say there's a movement. I've heard this suggestion come out about trigger warnings and things of that nature. And a lot of people are concerned, there's, something like in my book, it led to a very dark place rather quickly for this child. Should there be trigger warnings on books? It's an interesting concept, considering, all the different types of writers out there and all the different things that could be out. I mean, because we have music, we have explicit warning, explicit language warnings and things like that. As authors, do we need to put trigger warnings on our books in the future? Armand?
This is a big thing in the horror community right now. This is a lot of Twitter fighting right now, and it's been for a while. It's a slippery slope. Like, what is the trigger? What are the trigger warnings? Because you think of the big ones, but we're arguing about the smallest little thing. I mean, they're arguing about it. Profanity of the character said "damn," and that needs a trigger warning. I mean, people are actually arguing over this. I think for the taboos, I think for the big ones, I think it doesn't really hurt as authors to be honest and say, hey, there's a rape scene, hey, there's incest, hey, there's harm to children, or whatever it could be. But the problem becomes, does that help or hurt your book? Does it hurt or help your book sales? Does it hurt or help you if you've written a book and there is incest in your book, and then you don't sell the book, and then the argument is, well, then my next book might have it, but I'm not going to put that in there because I don't want to not make the sales. Or I know a lot of authors who have put those types of taboos, especially splatterpunk, and those are the people who are buying it. So it's a very small but rabid fan base. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't continue to put those taboos, you don't continue to put the trigger warning events in your book, then they don't want to read you anymore. They don't want you to write a crime thriller. They want you to continue to write this, and you kind of pigeonhole yourself into that. So for me, as a horror author coming into crime thriller, I've seen this for months and months and years of when these things are in the book. Me personally, I don't really do the trigger warning. So I have a series called Green River Blend. It's a trilogy. It's a horror book about coffee, and there are some violent things in this book. So basically, when you drink the coffee, it you either get powers or it changes your psyche, whatever. So there's very lonely in the book. This one character, which is kind of a throwaway she gets all of a sudden she's like, dominated by her mother, and she's like not a good looking girl. She doesn't like herself. She's like the 40-year-old virgin type of thing. But by drinking this coffee, all of a sudden she's confident, she dresses better, she starts having, in the book, she's having orgies and she's having sex with multiple partners and all this. And it was just kind of a minor character arc in the story. And I got a lot of bad reviews on that. People saying, that's a trigger warning. You should, and you should have explained that the character becomes, I even had an Amazon one that's, the woman's a whore. You should have said that in the, and I'm like, it's a minor character. It's literally like 2 chapters of her. She's in those chapters. And there's so many other things in there that you could pick up and say, well, this is a trigger warning. That, to me, I was like, that's not a woman finding herself sexually. I don't think it should be a trigger warning. Like, that's the problem. What is and isn't a trigger warning to anyone? Certain things might bother you. Hurting a cat in a story of serial killer, that's the typical, you hear all the time, because my wife watches Investigation Discovery religiously, and every serial killer has nailed a cat against the fence to start their career. You hear it all the time. So if you're writing a serial killer and you're starting him as a child and you're doing that, that's a trigger warning, even though we've seen it all the time. But for some people, that might not be a trigger warning. That might be, okay, I watched Investigation Discovery, I understand that. So again, it's that slippery slope for me of what the trigger warnings really are. Do we have a list? That's the other argument. Should we have a list and then continue to add to it? And then somebody's like, that list would be 50 pages because everybody is different. Like, so it's tough. It's a tough thing. And I'll stop babbling and I'll let Alicia talk now.
Thanks. So I think that the genres should speak for themselves. So for example, MG, YA, you're not going to have the orgy scenes and, those more adult topics in them. If I were to read a rom-com, I might expect some romance. If I were to read splatterpunk, to Armand's point, I would expect there to be splatter. And I think that the people who gravitate towards those type of books, I think Armand said there's a small but rabid fan base, I think were his words, they expect that. And so I think the genre should speak for themselves. With respect to a trigger warning, it disturbs me on a number of levels. First, I also agree that who's going to be responsible for deciding what is a trigger warning in the first place? Is it violence? Is it sex? Is it animal mutilation? Is it infidelity? The list is endless of what could constitute or what could be a trigger warning. I think certainly living in Texas, for those of you who may not have heard this, but we have cities that are banning books. And I am very, very concerned about that. And I think that if you had trigger warnings on books, it would just be a really easy way for people to say, oh, here's another one we should throw in a pile, we should burn, we should ban. And that is disturbing. And everybody who is watching should be disturbed by this because some of the books that are being banned are very important books. They're books that talk about race discrimination or the LGBTQ community and what it's like to live in it. I mean, important topics for kids, even for children, to be able to understand, hey, there are people out there like me. So I am not a supporter of a trigger warning. I think that readers are hopefully sensible enough to understand that if they pick up a horror book or they pick up a rom-com or they pick up anything, a murder mystery, yes, there's going to be more than likely some blood in the murder mystery. There's more than likely going to be, if you're picking up the steamy romance, you're probably gonna see some things that are adult in nature or read some things that are adult in nature. So definitely not on board with that, would not support it.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, I think it causes more harm than good because, like I said, you get on a different list, if you will, like I said, especially you're there in Texas. But no, it definitely, like I said, you're not going to appease everybody. You're not going to, everyone's triggers are different. Your whole blurb will be listing, all the different aspects of your book, so it would be, like I said, it definitely, if you gravitate towards crime fiction, yes, there's going to be a body, there's going to be, so it's kind of an assumption that you would think that would be made by the reader that, yes, definitely there's going to be something bad in this book. And that's what the point of the blurb is. You're supposed to kind of give them a little bit of a thing, so yeah, I think the trigger warning is, a disturbing suggestion right now. I think it's, it could lead to other things that are, like I said, you're bordering on censorship at some point. I think at one point it's an interesting topic that's coming up. So I just think hearing it more and more, it's going to be an issue further on in the future, I think. But someone had posted a question actually that in the chat here I wanted to actually address. Someone said, have you ever wondered that the FBI would knock on your door after describing a crime in one of your books? I have a standalone book outside my shoulder series called The Calling Card Murders. And it actually came out of a joke I made in a panel, because I said, well, people ask, what do you get your ideas? What do you do? It's like, well, I've got a ton of research, and my husband really should be concerned because if anything ever happened to me, the first thing the cops do is come for the computer. That man's toast. They'll put him under the jail because I have everything of how to do different types of murders and weaponry. And so I actually wound up writing this book about an indie author who gets a big time contract. So he's writing a book and doing all this research, and the murders that he's writing actually start happening. So he starts getting catching the eye of the detective to see how he does his research. So it was kind of, like I said, it came out of a panel discussion one day, but I can imagine, the type of research, what type of, it's like, what type of catalog do you have? Yeah, I can imagine Armond has got quite the history stored up for him. So, do you have like vast amounts of like data files at this point of various things?
For me, I'm a pantser, so everything I write is off the top of my head. So my history, so I do a thing I call, it started as a joke. My real name is Armando. Growing up, they called me Mondo. So I started doing what I call the Mondo method of writing, which is at the top of every hour, I write for like 15 minutes. And I'm watching the timer. So at 10:15, 11:15, whatever, that I stop. And then that other 45 minutes is research or getting a cup of coffee or playing my baseball game or looking at the MLB, lockout. So I'm all over the place for that 45 minutes. Who knows what I'm looking at, or I'm reading comic books online, or I'm ordering stuff on eBay. I'm all over the place. But it's funny, most of the research, most of the ideas come from sitting on the couch with my wife every night and watching Investigation Discovery. We're watching a show, and the guy wraps the body in chicken wire so that you throw the body in the water wrapped in chicken wire so that it won't float. The chicken wire will slowly basically dig into the flesh and let all of the everything out. And I was like, that's got to go in a story. That's got to go in somewhere. And so it's a lot of that. So my history, my Google history is just all over the place. Weird. Some people would probably look at it and go, oh, a 12-year-old uses this computer, because there's baseball cards and comic books, that kind of thing. So I really don't do files. I don't do all that. And I'm also writing, like you see on my board behind me, I have like 14 open projects right now that I'm working on. So I'm all over the place. I'm writing horror stories and I'm doing all these different things. And most of it is in my head. Most of it is Post-it notes. I'm huge with Post-it notes. So I'll have scribbles that I don't know what they really say anymore. That's kind of the way I write. So it's a big jumbled mess in my head, and all these things eventually, hopefully, will make it to the page. But it's not really, I don't have lists of the greatest serial killers of all time, or their modus operandi of who killed who kind of thing. Although I guess that'd be a lot of fun to look up and play around with, but I don't have any of that.
Alicia, yeah, what's your research like?
Yeah, so I'm also a pantser, but I will say I don't think the FBI would knock on my door, but possibly the ATF or the Men in Black.
Yeah.
My novel is filled with firearms, lots of firearms, different types of firearms, and so I did a lot of research on things like sniper rifles, calibers of weapons, how fast bullets travel, how far away does it have to go to make this kind of impact on a body. And fortunately, I have almost every branch of military represented in my family, including a sniper, a Marine sniper. So I spent a lot of time talking to each one of them about the weapons they used, how they worked. I won't say that I shot them because I didn't, but I did play with them, break them down, hold the bullets, see the difference in sizes and calibers, those kinds of things. So if anyone were looking at my computer, they would see a lot of weapons research. As for the Men in Black, because my stories always have a supernatural component, there's always a question of, is there some other life form? Is there some alien technology here? Is there something else going on? So if the Men in Black came to my house, that would not surprise me at all.
Maybe they have already. Maybe they have.
They might be. I don't know.
They might have. They might have.
Yeah, I too am a pantser. It's funny, the more murder mystery people or true, or crime writers, they do, a lot of them, I find more pantsers than I do, plotters. It's interesting because, I also got an idea for a story, for a murder method of a poison that I watched on Forensic Files, because they talked about how quickly it broke down in the body, and I'm like, oh wait, and so my husband knows that, like I said, he comes in the house, I have Forensic Files paused, and I got a notepad. He knows, something's gonna happen, So it's just, it's one of those things. It's just, something sparks. My husband he had this weird dream, and I was just like, talking to him, and he's like, are you interviewing me or what? I said, this is a short story. So what happened after he got in the car? And I was just like, so it was, so the ideas come randomly, but my search history is quite diverse and interesting. I've had a couple of books where I've talked about serial killers, it was just multiple murders, and so there's a lot of different methodologies and techniques that are stored on my computer, which was from the untrained eye or someone who doesn't know what I do is quite concerning, I would imagine.
I always tell my wife,
Mhm.
if she kills me and she gets caught, I would be so disappointed, because she's watched thousands of hours of investigation discovery, and
Exactly.
she should know. She should be able to commit the perfect murder without a problem. I would be so upset if she got caught.
Well, there's someone said, I saw someone post somewhere, and it's like, well, if you're ever going to kill, bury a body, bury it 12 feet deep, and then about like 6 feet above that, put in either, some animal or things like that. So when the cadaver dogs come, they'll find the animal. Or you plant, an endangered species of plant on top of the burial site, because they won't be able to. So like all these weird things, it's like I have all this like stored, like I said, post-it notes and scribblings and things like that, just little techniques of how to divert, so it would be disappointing, if someone wasn't, reading my research to know how best to get away with it. So
Florida Everglades is a great place, between the alligators and the boas.
The alligators will take care of that. Yes. Someone is asking, explain pantsers and plotters. So do you want to, whenever you want to take that's Armond.
So I was pointing at Alicia.
Pointing at Alicia. It looks like this way to me. So
Sure. So, it's interesting. I was never a big outliner in my life, in college and in grad school, and in law school, you have to outline everything. That's how you learn. That's how they teach. That's how you learn. When I started writing, I could not translate that skill at all. In fact, even in my legal writing, I never outline an argument. It just comes from the top of my head. So, pantsters, we are the folks, and I think Armond referenced this earlier, where the ideas come, we write them down. I know I don't have a storyline from start to finish. I basically know what I want the story to be, and getting there is the really interesting part, because I wake up in the morning with an idea and I write it down, and that's how I do my writing. The plotsters are the ones who draw it out. I see Armand's got a whiteboard behind him. I don't think I see any plotting back there, but they plot out. This chapter typically will be this, and the next chapter this is going to happen. The next chapter this is going to happen. I think there are certainly benefits to that. You can see the progression of your storyline. You can catch the holes easier. I can only speak from my own experience, but being a pantser, I think that there's a lot of originality there. I'm not stuck in an outline. If I look at an outline, I might say, okay, well, I need to write this because that's what I put in my outline. But as a pantser, I can wake up, write down an argument or a storyline, and then think, nah, I don't like that. I'm just going to change it, and then wait for the next idea to come. So I think there's a lot of originality there. I don't think one is better than the other. I just think that they are certainly different for how you're wired as a writer and as a thinker.
Yeah,
I think you
definitely.
gotta,
I mean, yeah.
you,
Go
you
ahead,
have to
Armand.
figure out, are you a pantser, are you a plotter, or are you a combination of both? For me, it's I wanna, I wanna write a story that I want to read. This story, I've not read this story yet, and I want to read this story. And actually, what is on my whiteboard is just a couple of dozen story titles, things that I'm working on, and where I am on those. I used to have a giant whiteboard on the other wall, and it's now full of Funko Pops, and that was like some plot things and stuff, and I didn't like it. I didn't want to know what was coming next. I wanted to sit down and go, what are these characters giving me right this second? What are we doing right now? Instead of, okay, I know this is the fight scene coming up because it's in my it's plotted out. And I never wanted to know the end. I wanted to know, can we get to this point? Can we get close enough to this where it's going to make sense, it's going to be a good book that I want to read. And I think that's really part. But I have friends that will, I mean, from top to bottom, they're writing out like 25 pages of the plot and all the beats, and they have every beat in there, and they have every twist and turn and everything all the way to the end. They know exactly where this book is going, and then they just kind of filling in the blanks. And for me, that would drive me crazy as a writer to already know, because for me, I already wrote the story. It's 25 pages long. I know exactly how it starts and exactly how it ends, and let me move on to the next story. And I think so. It's a person to person, and I think that's what makes it fun. The three of us, I guarantee, write stuff completely different, our mindset and everything else, and that's what makes writing so much fun, because there's no right and wrong way to do it. It's just finish a story. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I tried, the outline. Well, at least, I guess that's more like milestones, like in this chapter, this is gonna at least happen, and I have to work my way to it, but then again, like I said, my characters take on a life of their own. And, Schuler, he was never intended to be a series. He was a throwaway character to move the plot in the first book. I just needed a sheriff guy to come in. And then I found myself intrigued with him. So then he just, was, he showed up in the second book. It was, then the third book wasn't even about him. And then he kept just, if you change her age, that could be the sister. He talked to, so I was like, damn it. So I had to throw out, the first 4 chapters, or rewrite, the idea of the first 4 chapters and work him in there. So I have, like I said, the basic of outlines, just what the point of the chapter is supposed to be. And my characters will just, during dialogue or doing something they're doing, and I'll be typing, I'm just transcribing what they're doing, and they'll just make a left turn and just mess up my 3 portion, parts of my outline. And I'm like, so that's it, so I try to plan it, but I have to stay true to the story, and outlining it, like I said, it gives away the ending for me. So I need to have the basic of ideas and just go from there, is how I feel.
And I think you let the characters come alive if you're more of a pantser, and that's, again, just a personal thought, because that's the way I write. But they take on their own life. Just Dr. Lopez, to what you just said. Yeah. If you outline it, then you know what they're going to do. But if you don't, then they start telling you in your head what they're going to do. Yeah. And I find that one of the most fascinating and interesting parts of writing, and fun parts of writing.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I had authors in school yesterday at Amelia.Island, West Nassau High School, and someone had said, it's like, yeah, my friend, when he says he writes, he goes, the characters talk to him. What is that? I was like, well, I said, so I said, I'll speak dialogue out loud. It's at my computer. My husband just knows just to keep walking, because he knows I'm having a one-sided conversation with my character at that point, because I have to hear, it has to be, relatable and real enough to have true dialogue. I said I'd hear them. They talk, it's like I said, Schuler, he was not supposed to be in book 3. He became book 3 in the series because he wouldn't shut up. So it's just those things. It's like, yeah, it's just, to me, it lends, my personal view, it lends a little more, onus on the characters to tell the story, so much as me telling the story. Like I said, I become a documentarian. I just transcribe their lives at this point. So Well, looking at the clock, I think we got about 5 minutes. So this is a question actually that a student had asked me yesterday. I actually had written down, but they actually asked me in their class session yesterday is, what is your favorite murder weapon? Do you have a go-to weapon that you like? Yes, that's what I'd like to use. Yeah. Is there anything that you gravitate towards, Alicia?
Steyr SSG sniper rifle.
She knew right off. That's right.
It is very accurate, very deadly. So, yeah, hands down, hands down.
Armand?
I use a Desert Eagle in a lot of my books, and it's actually the only gun I have ever held in my hand. I've never fired it or anything. I had a girlfriend whose father had just bought one and was very excited and came running in the living room and put it in my hand, and I was like, holy crap. And I grew up, my mother is definitely afraid of weapons, guns. So as kids, we were not allowed to have toy guns or anything like that. My dad served in Vietnam and saw a lot of combat. So it was always one of those things growing up in the 70s. Me and my brother did not have guns. We did not have weapons in the house. And so as a writer, especially writing crime fiction stuff, I have to do a ton of research, but I always feel like I'm behind everyone else. Like you, Alicia, you've done all this stuff, you know all this. I'm trying to figure out. So a lot of times I'm like, Desert Eagle. I know how it works. I know how many shots. I know enough about this weapon to put it in. And a lot of times I kind of cheat and I just say he drew his weapon. I had to write up a Jacksonville Beach police officer in my new series. And I was like, I don't even know what they carry. So luckily another author friend, her husband is a JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And I said, can I talk to him for like 5 minutes? I just need to know what weapons and stuff. So that was a lot of fun.
Was it a Glock?
Yes.
Was it a Glock, Armond?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. See, she knows.
She knows.
Yeah,
That's
she
the
knows.
service weapon. Yeah, your Desert Eagle, was it a 50 caliber? Because it's a huge gun. It has a ton of kick, and it sounds like a cannon going off. I have shot one, and it nearly knocked me on my backside. It's a big gun, and it's a scary gun, and it makes big holes.
Yeah,
Really
that's what he said. He has a lot of fun going to the range with it. But yeah, so for me, like it's just because, and I don't know what weapon it would be if that Desert Eagle had never been put in my hands. It would just probably be just random weapons here and there.
Yeah, personally, I haven't had like gravitate. Yeah, I don't have the one off like Alicia has like on top of her list. I do have, my killer in actually the calling card murders. His MO was that he did not want a signature, so he tried new things each time. And I actually went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to kill someone with an icicle, the ultimate, weapon that melts. And it took a long time of research and a lot of things. And transport it had to be a warm day, had to be this, had to be that, all the different, where with the right placement would be, and be effective and all that's so that was a rabbit hole that took me down a couple of weeks of trying to determine just exactly how to craft, transport, and inflict. So that was my it took a lot of work, but it was one of my favorites because it paid off in the end, I think. So do either of you have anything coming out recently? That's a quick wrap up since we got like 2 minutes. Do you have anything coming up that you want to tell the readers about right now, or Alicia, do you have anything coming?
Actually, I have 3 novels in the works, but I don't have anything coming out terribly in the near future. I mean, for me as a full-time attorney, it takes a lot longer to get something down on paper and to get it to publish. So not yet, but coming.
Armand?
I have on the 15th of this month, Throwdown, which was the second book in my First Coast thriller series, came out. And then March 15th, the third book, Man Down, will be out. I'm doing rapid release January, February, March 15th. The first 3 books came out. And then the last 3 books will come out about 3 months apart for the end of the year. So, and I have a bunch of horror stuff coming out, but those are all with publishers, and I'm doing edits on a couple things. So last year I put out 14 releases. which was not a lot for me. I have over, if you look at my Amazon, I have like 225 releases in the last, dozen years or so. So I'm prolific. I do four to 500,000 words a year that I'm writing because this is my full-time job. This is what's paying the bills for me and stuff. So it's fun, but it's a constant, I did retail management for 25 years, 60 hours a week, and hated every second of it.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing like 80 to 100 hours of promoting and writing and everything else, but I love it.
Yep.
It's fun. So Alicia, you already have all the hours you're working. So at some point you're going to be like, I'm going to become a full-time author. This will be my job. And you'll be like, I'm working more now than I did as an attorney. So that's,
what I say is I write for a living as an attorney, but I don't yet make a living as a writer. That is my reality. I hope to flip that script. That is the goal.
Yeah, same here. I hope to, ditch the day job one day and do that. I do have some short stories coming out. I do, several of those. But I am just starting another story. It was a murder mystery, and again, I think Schiller is just, he's bored, so he may make an appearance in that one. That may be book 5, so in that series. But that'll probably be out. I'm hoping by next year. So, but it's in the beginning stages now. So I believe with that is our time. That was 45 minutes, so it seems about right. I'm not sure if Nancy is on or who is supposed to be taking over. I'm not sure.
Thank you both, Armand and Dr. Lopez.
Yes.
It's nice to be on with you.
yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was good talking to you. I'm glad, we were able to be able to answer some of the, questions in the chat too. That was, make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about in the end. So, but I appreciate you guys' time, and it was a great conversation.
What a great talk. Wow. I'm scared. You guys are just the stories I just can't believe, and the weapons definitely have me looking over my shoulder and the FBI. So I really appreciate all of you for taking the time and opening up your techniques and your thoughts to us. This has been wonderful.
It was fun. Like I said, I like talking this, like I said, it's, concerning how much I like to talk about, this type of topic, but it's, it's a